Hi there, welcome to Bitesize Piano. In this video I'm going to explain a bit sort of behind the scenes of how I go about figuring out songs. So I'm mainly talking about chords and songs with words, so like pop songs, etc. This isn't a video about ear training. That video is going to come a bit later on, and when it's here I will link it everywhere below. This is just going to be what I do, what I listen out for, and if there are any tips and tricks that you pick up along the way, and then great. So before I dive in, as like a disclaimer, I have been playing the piano for about 22 years now, and I've been teaching it for nearly 9 years. I teach 6 days a week. I'm an actual professional full-time piano teacher. It's my full-time job and I make these videos on the side. So I'm practicing figuring out songs pretty much on a daily basis, and I have been doing that for a long time. So I have loads of music qualifications. I have an advanced, extensive knowledge of like music theory. So all of these things should be taken into consideration, and if you're a beginner or if you've been playing piano for a little while, these sort of listening skills and abilities is just something that will develop over time. So as I said, there are going to be some videos coming up to help you with ear training and recognising things like intervals, and I'm going to help you develop your interval recognition and relative pitch. So I don't have perfect pitch. I've already spoke about this in another video. I can just about sing a C, but that's it. That doesn't mean I have perfect pitch. So the first thing that really helps me when figuring out a song or a piece of music is my knowledge of scales and key signatures, and my knowledge of what you call diatonic chords of a scale. So I've done an entire video explaining this, which I'll link in the description below. It's well worth checking it out. Your knowledge of theory, of music theory, really helps. It's almost like a fast track way of figuring out songs. So if you know what key a piece of music is in, and then you know the notes that are involved, and you should know what chords to use as well based on the scale of the key signature. So my first tip is know your scales. Practice your scales daily. They become incredibly useful when figuring out a song, and just being able to navigate around a set of notes kind of more instinctively and naturally, so you can rule out a whole other set of notes and just stick to the ones that are within that key signature. So yeah, the first thing I do is I establish what key signature we're in. I'm not going to go over that in this video, that's for another video. So once I know the key, I can then play the scale. So say we're in G, I know that the notes are going to be, the chords are going to be G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished. So that's just something that I know. I know that the song is more likely going to have those chords in it. Also within pop music, because I figure out many songs, all sorts of different songs, I have a knowledge of like trends of certain songs follow. So I might assume that I think a song is going to go a certain way, or a chord progression is going to go a certain way. I'm usually right. Again, this makes it easier, very quick for me to figure songs out. Again, when you build up a back knowledge of songs, and your brain starts to go, well, this song did this thing with this chord, so, and it went to this one, so maybe it will do it again. Most of the time, because pop music is pop music, you're right, but sometimes it might take a turn. Identifying the key signature of the piece of music is the first step. The second thing then I do is that I listen to the song. Most of the time, I just listen to it with my phone. If I only listened to it using the speakers out of my phone, I'm probably going to get some things wrong, because phone speakers and laptop speakers, they filter out the lower frequencies of music and sound. I might assume that there's a bass note there just from my knowledge of chord progressions and etc. But I could be wrong, and I have been wrong in the past, and that's fine. Whenever I've been wrong about something, it's because I've not listened to this piece of music on adequate speakers or headphones. So I'm going to show you the headphones that I use to make sure that I'm getting a full field of sound and that I'm not missing anything out, and I can hear everything and all the background noise around me is cancelled out. So here are the headphones that I use. They're Sennheisers. This is obviously not sponsored by Sennheiser. These are cool because they fold down. So these are the Sennheiser, what are they? HD 4.30i. I've linked these in the description below. They don't break the bank. These are what you call the all-around ear ones. So you can see there that they go all around the ear. So it cancels out any background noise to an extent, and it feels like whatever you're listening to is you're fully immersed in the sound. And that's how I like to make sure that I'm figuring out a song and teaching it to you guys as accurately as possible. Again, I have got it wrong, and I do get it wrong, and that's because I've not listened to it properly. And I've learned from my mistakes. So if I figure out a song that's just on my phone, I always double check it with these afterwards. So then when I'm listening to it, I'm fully immersed in the sound and what's going on. If I've never heard the song before, if it's a song I'm not terribly familiar with, which to be honest, it's probably about half the tutorials that I teach are songs I've never heard before, which is why I need you guys to send me requests so I know which ones to do. I get an idea of the structure of the song, and then what I do, this is my whiteboard. I use this for my students. If you're a student of mine, hello. You obviously know these very well. I just write down the order of the song. So say it has an intro, so I'll write intro, and then say it has, the next thing is a verse. This is just a very typical song structure. Maybe a pre-chorus, usually a pre-chorus, so pre-C, and then the chorus, etc. Verse 2, bridge, etc. So that's kind of what I do, all of my bunched up. I use a whiteboard because in case I need to make any amendments, I don't have to sit there faffing around rubbing it out. So I like to have what's in front of me when I teach my tutorials, that's for definite. So once I've gauged the structure of the song, I'll then go in and start figuring out chord progressions, or if there's any like melodic bits in between the chord progressions that I think would be interesting to add in there. So then there are two things that I listen out for next. The first thing is the bass note. The second thing is the highest note. And then I fill from my knowledge of knowing what major and minor chords sound like major sevenths, minor sevenths, etc., diminished, augmented chords. I just know what they sound like just from hearing them because I've been doing this for a long time. And then I fill in the rest of the notes. So I listen out for the bass note. 9 times out of 10, the bass note is going to be the root note of the chord that you're playing. But it's not always the case. There might also be some passing bass notes in there. So for example, so there's an extra note in there. I might miss that if I wasn't listening to that in my headphones. And then I listen out for the top voicing of the chord. So this is what I meant by the higher notes, not the highest notes in the whole track, but the higher notes in the chords from what I can hear. So this gives me what inversions the chords are going to be. So I do say in many of my videos, if you've been watching my videos for a while, I try to be specific about the inversions of the chords. So what order you play the notes of the chords in, so it sounds as much like the original, what's on the track, as possible. So inversions are obviously really important. Inversions can add almost like an extra, I guess, inner counter melody just from the chord progression. And there is one song that I know you will know, which happens to be a perfect example of this, which is All of Me by John Legend. So the song goes. So the top voicing there, we have. recognisable. If I play now, so there were a couple of inversions in there. So we have F minor, root position, D flat major, first inversion, A flat major, second inversion, and then E flat major, root position. So there are 2 inversions in there. If I now play the root position of every single chord, it won't sound as recognisable like this. Sound like the song anymore. So if you're still playing the root position of every single chord and not trying to figure out what the top note is and trying to use your ear and develop your ear training and listening skills, stop it now. If you're looking online for like the chords and lyrics, for example, and you're just seeing the chords above the lyrics and you're just playing the root position of every single chord and then you're not checking that to see if that's right, that's more work for you, because having to play the root position of every single chord means you're having to move your hands around a lot more. The beauty of inversion chords is that it might be that you only have to change a couple of notes to get to the next chord, but obviously you would just be changing the bass note. So when I'm working out songs, I'm obviously constantly, what inversion is it? Is it the root position? Is it the second inversion? Is it the first inversion? Because I don't want to teach you a watered down version of the song. I want to teach you something that's recognisable, and if you just played like the accompaniment, for example, which I know that I mostly do on my channel, someone will be able to go, oh, it's All of Me by John Legend. Whereas if you played all those chords in root position, it's not going to be so recognisable. So once I have figured out the bass note and what inversion I'm playing, I then start to write this down. So if I take the same song as the example, this is what I do. And you've probably seen pictures of me posting my scribblings of like the structure and chords of a song, which makes total sense to me. So the intro. So the first chord is an F minor and it's root position. So I'll just write F minor, FM, which is also my initials. And then the next chord, what was it? A D flat major. But it's actually, it's the first inversion of D flat major. So I write a little 1 next to it just to remind me that it's the first inversion. Again, if you don't know what inversion chords are, I've made a video on inversions below, so go and watch that. You need to know about inversions. Stop playing the root position of every chord. The second one was A flat major, and that was the second inversion. So this time I'm going to write A flat and then 2 next to it. And again, it reminds me to play the second inversion and to teach the second inversion of the chord. And then the last chord was E flat major, root position. So I just write E flat. And then I go through and decide how many times that's played through. So I think the intro for that one is played twice, then I'll make a note, play it twice. If there are any passing notes in the bass, I make a little note of those as well. So just so there are no passing bass notes in All of Me by John Legend for the intro anyway. But say there was, say we're going from an F to an A flat. I will write a little A flat there, just to remind me to play the A flat off the bass note just before I go into the next chord. So this is how I sit and figure songs out. If it's a pop song, it doesn't take me long. This part of it takes me barely any time at all, and then I play through it and make sure I'm getting all the right versions and I'm understanding the song. And again, if it's a song I'm not familiar with, I try and sing along to it as well, so I know the melody, and I'm obviously trying to sing more in my videos. So what do I do if I can't quite hear the inversions? What I do then is, there's going to be some melody in there. I will turn to the melody and bass the inversion chords of what the melody is singing. An example of me explaining this is actually, I remember in my titanium video, I've listed that in the description below as well. You might as well just go and watch that because I explain why I do certain inversions. The vocal melody line usually have notes that belong to the chord that you're in. So then our bassy inversions, the top notes of the chords from the vocal line instead. So it makes it easier for you to sing over, or someone else as well to hear the right pitch as the top voice. Look after yourself, look after your ears. The eardrums are really sensitive, so make sure that you're listening to music not too loud. You know, take care of your ears, wear earbuds if you go see a live band. If you want to be able to figure songs out, you need to be able to hear properly. And they will deteriorate as you get older, but you can do your best to try and look after them and prevent that from happening too early on. So that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and that it's useful. If you would like to leave a piano tutorial request, you need to click on this video, which takes you through to my official request space. You do need to be subscribed. All requests are noted and considered, so I look forward to seeing you over there.